to be here with you all. For those of you that don't know, we are the Ascension Seed, Reuben and Nyasha. I can come over a bit because you're not in it. And we're here today with Adriana, and this is part of our Race Awakening series, which is a series of conscious race conversations in the run-up to our course Racism Revealed to Heal, which starts next Monday. And yeah, so we're really honoured to have Adriana here today. Adriana is from America, and she's someone who's an amazing healer and guide, and she's also joining us on our course, Racism Revealed to Heal. I can hear a lot of echo.
Yeah, well, what I did was I just took my headphones out because I don't need them. But I think if we take our headphones, then it won't have echo, and then also we don't have to double hear it. Try that.
Okay, cool. Let's just try that and just turn the sound off. Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Hopefully that's working. So Adriana, thank you so much for being here with us today. Many blessings to you. Grateful, and thank you to everyone who's here on Zoom. Everyone. Oh, bless you all. So yeah, today we really wanted to speak to you about your journey with awakening to racism and hear more about how that's been for you through your life, you know, your level of consciousness before around race and race issues, and how that's expanded through this collective shift in race consciousness and race awareness that we're going through recently. So
Yeah. So, sorry, I feel like my internet is like not super great for some reason, but yeah, well, I mean, thank you, first of all, for having this conversation. And I'm really excited for your course that's starting. I'm just like so excited. And I know some people that are going to be joining us, and it's just, I'm really excited to learn more. So this is very much like I think it's interesting to do this conversation now because it's very much like a the course conversation. So it'll be interesting to have a conversation after. And I think, you know, so much of, you know, my experience growing up, I mean, in America, I grew up like with a lot of Italian Americans, where there was a lot of racism against basically anybody that wasn't Italian American. It was like, it's this weird Italian American thing. I feel like that happens where there is just a lot of racism against anybody that isn't like you. And so, you know, growing up around that, I definitely always like felt like it was really wrong and didn't resonate with me. And I remember even as like being a younger adult, just like always like yelling at my dad when he would say things. And I just always was speaking up, you know, against and around it. And then I think as an adult and being on a spiritual path, which is part of what I wanted to talk to you all about, because I know you've been on a spiritual path for some time too. I think I have really fell into some of that privilege around not really considering race, you know, even though nowadays I do very much honor people's embodiment, right? Like who people are as individuals, that does include race. In a lot of the beginning years, it was just about connecting to soul, right? And connecting to the ways that we all have a soul, and that whole experience of oneness, that I do feel like it really was a lot of privilege and a lot of white privilege that was infused in that experience that kept me not as inclusive of people that didn't look like me and people that were of different color and races. That I think in this movement, but also in the past year, is something I've definitely come into a lot more in my teaching, but also just in my community building. And the two things that I'll share around that, one is that we began last year going and doing some feeding. We had a feeding ministry that we would do every Sunday in Skid Row. And in Skid Row, there's people experiencing homelessness, tons and tons of people in Los Angeles that live on Skid Row in that area. mostly Black people that live there that are experiencing homelessness. And we wouldn't go to like feed them because they were, you know, they have food. People go there all the time and give them food, but we would go and bring chili and like really just go to connect with people and like hang out, like, and just be in love, you know? And the experience was so profound because I felt so much of my own fear and discrimination and things that I didn't even know were there until I was like in this environment that was like, I would feel like unsafe or feel afraid when like actually, you know, people are way more kind and open and loving than like the yoga studio that I was teaching at the time. And then the other experience that I'll share around race and healing was on one of our last retreats. You know, there was an experience where there was, you know, just, I don't want to, for confidentiality, I don't want to share exactly what happened, but there was an experience where race came up and, you know, there were things that I have done on my path as a teacher that felt like microaggression to people of color in my circles. And, you know, this is obviously like a very embarrassing in a certain way to kind of admit, but it also felt really good that those conversations could be had in those circles. And so I'm just really interested in learning more and more about this and being in communication, you know, with you and with all of the other people of color in my life around the ways that we're waking up, you know, to it and the ways that I see it helping us to bring even more of this spiritual healing type of work that many of us have been doing out into the context of being embodied with it in life. So.
We can't hear you on the Zoom now either.
Oh, weird. You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
No, we can't hear you now.
Oh, can anyone else hear? Just to put in the chat if you can hear.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Maybe it's because you don't have the headphones in now.
Let's try and, can you try and let us back into the
Yeah,
live?
Yeah.
We'll just rejoin the Zoom.
Yeah, try that. Try coming out and then back in for the Zoom maybe.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, yeah, we can
Okay,
hear
now
you.
we can hear you.
I've been hearing you.
Sorry. So was it the whole time? Because I feel like I just talked for like 2 minutes.
No, it wasn't the whole time. You were talking about going to LA and connecting to people more of a heart space instead of to people in more like a soul level instead of just going to like give them things and kind of hanging out, and how that had some sort of opening for you. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, just around that whole process of kind of this. I
Adriana,
feel like,
you there?
yeah. We're having a technical Mercury retrograde issues. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Aware that it's just...
How about, is that any better maybe? I've just put it in my mobile data. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I can hear you now. Hello? I'll make you all co-host again.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
We use it all the time. It's never like this. Retrograde vibes. Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, this is spirit is not allowing this.
I know, it's so annoying. I feel like it's like a Mercury retrograde moment. I can hear you, and I can see you now. Can you hear me? Oh, now I feel like they're gone. Where'd they go? Yeah, I don't see them. Well, technology, you know, as we know, does what it wants.
Okay, I think we're back now. Can
Okay.
hear you? Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, amazing. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, we didn't quite catch the end of the last bit. I think you talked about Skid Row. Story you started to share about a yoga studio, maybe?
Yeah. And just like bringing, you know, we would bring people from, some people actually that are on this live, you know, would come, and like we would just bring volunteers down there, and like, you know, not like I said, with the intention of like, you know, solving homelessness or anything, but just to be able to kind of like be with people, you know, in that way that are really so often gone like unseen and ignored. And I think that one of the takeaways for me was around was this kind of dismantling of like privilege and that whole world of not, you know, I think so much of it comes from just like the unwillingness to see, or the ways we're conditioned to not see others. And, you know, yeah, that's a big part of it for me.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I think you're so right. Like you say, when you went out of Skid Row and you're outside of your bubble of your experience and your comfort, then you start to meet, you know, the parts of you that have unconsciously shut off from everything which you've kept outside of your bubble of comfort. And there's a reason that people kind of stay in environments that reflect, you know, where they are and where they've kind of unconsciously decided, you know, is their space and like the people that are like them on some level. And people don't mix, you know, like, you know, there's like loads of statistics about how people very rarely like socialize in different, you know, social classes, and even often then that is reflected in, you know, different ethnicities and yeah, all of that. So there's so many ways that we unconsciously stay in separation, and that's the irony about, you know, people on the spiritual path that are doing all this deep work to like open to love and open to oneness, and then they're just kind of actually, you know, like, you know, exploring that with people that often are just like them. So it's like, oh, how do I become one with those that are already like quite similar to me? And it's obviously going to be much easier then to find oneness with your reflections that, you know, physically, like, you know, represent, you know, you and the life experience you've gone through. So yeah, that's, you know, definitely a big part of why I think people in the spiritual community haven't confronted, you know, these things so much. And I wanted to ask you actually, you know, as someone who is white and who's had that experience of being white and being in the kind of spiritual path and you know, allowing, you know, unconsciously some ignorance to build there around, you know, lived experiences beyond yours and the reality of racism and there's so many complex layers to how that manifests, right? And even for Black people and people of color, like, people don't always realize like how deep this stuff goes, like how much of our being is dominated by these unconscious structures and hierarchies and power dynamics. And so we don't realize how oppressed we are often as well by racism. And I think it's true that white people are equally as unconsciously oppressed. It's just manifesting in a different way. It's not the pain isn't active on them. It's like a subtle, you know, like living in a bubble of your own separation and an illusion about other people's experiences. For me, that is a form of oppression, you know, to the deepest part of our being, right? But it's an oppression that's like insidious, because you can just be happy if you can think you're happy like that and be so numb and disconnected to the part of you that feels deep pain from being so separate from like such a big, you know, amount of yourself, you know, like through all these other reflections of you who are on the earth. And like, you know, people in the global south, like Black and brown people, are such a big, you know, portion of humanity. And so white people being disconnected from the experience of them, like that just, you know, if you think about what that says in terms of like, you know, our level of integration, it shows huge fragmentation within the self. So yeah, I'd love to hear more on your perspective on why it's taken so long for so many conscious white people to even acknowledge, you know, racism and start to consider that racism is something that concerns them. And you know, obviously, you know, we've touched on some of these things already, but if you'd love to hear you speak a bit more to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, part of it is that there's this, and thank you for sharing that and for asking me such a challenging question. I do love to be challenged. That's why, you know, I'm really open to all of this and open to these conversations and open to real transformation, you know, which I think comes from the willingness to be challenged. I think in my experience, it's almost like, well, there's two things. One thing is that what you're speaking to of like the way that it's perpetuated because there isn't like there isn't an awareness there, right? And then when there is, there's such a deep there's like such a deep grief almost that then happens because you feel how like, whoa, I didn't even know I wasn't connected to this person, to these types of people, to this group of people, to that, to this, that you feel like, you know, I think that the initial reaction is there's a shame, there's a grief, and and then for many of us that don't know how to process shame and grief, there's defensiveness, there's all that white fragility and anger. And like, I mean, the most challenging thing in all this for me is other white people's fragility is the most triggering thing for me in all of this, which obviously includes my own, because they're not other white people, they're obviously parts of me. And so, you know, it's like loving that in all of this is the hardest thing. And I think the reason why it's taken so long, in my experience, is that it's almost like, you know how it's like when you're waking up something that's asleep, right? You're waking up something you've denied for so long, and it's like it comes to you in these little bits, right? And like for so long, it's like, well, I've resonated with this person for this reason, and I resonate. You know, it's like it's almost like being colorblind, right? Like what you're talking about of like being in spiritual communities and feeling like, wow, I don't feel comfortable if there's only white people. You know, I lived in New York City for a long time for that reason, because I don't always feel like I feel like things don't make sense to me if there's like a bunch of white people there. And in the systems of that I've been inside of, for the most part, that has been the predominant whiteness has really kind of been the predominant thing in a lot of spiritual and yoga circles that I've been in. And so I think that part of it is just that collective, you know, being so asleep and the feeling of like, well, how do I do this? Like, how do I, like, not having the words to talk about it, not having like, it's like almost like for someone like me that I know isn't necessarily afraid to like make a mistake or be embarrassed or something like that, but it was almost like it's like there was just like a block. There's just like an actual like, you know, part of it just feeling like, well, I am open to all people, and so like isn't everyone else, you know, and like that kind of ignorance that really, you know, it's what keeps me separate from my family. You know, like people talk now like, well, talking to your family. I'm like, I don't talk to my family. Like I didn't talk to them before.
Yeah.
And now I can talk to, you know, now I'm like, oh, maybe I should talk to my family, you know, because I've really separated myself from my family a long time ago because I didn't have the same beliefs. I just, not just that, I strongly, you know, disagreed, and it was really unhealthy for me to not all of my family. My mom I talked to, but you know, her I could talk to about anything, and she can kind of go there with me. So I think it's just it's been such a massive collective unconscious that has just been really asleep, and so many systems, right, that are built inside of that I think it's taken so long because it means like really giving up a lot of things that we might feel like are ours as a white person, or time or energy that I feel like, oh, this is mine because I've worked for it, or whatever that is. And I think that's really hard for some people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for such a rich sharing and so honest and vulnerable and heart opening. And yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for white people at the moment, is to accept that it's not actually about them. You know, it's about the whole, it's about the collective. And within spiritual circles, or the spiritual kind of bypassing community, there definitely is a tendency to be like, oh, race doesn't exist, and it's, you know, in a higher state it's all oneness, and like, you know, we don't see race in 5D, and all of these kind of higher spiritual truths which actually don't correlate with our earthly experience and actually can be more damaging. And within spiritual circles there definitely is this kind of this desire to kind of dissociate from real life, and sometimes with pure intention. You know, there is a pure intention there to like not see those structures, but by ignoring them and not doing the work to uncover them, we obviously are, we're not allowing those wounds to be healed as a collective. You know, we're not allowing those things to be to be addressed and come to the surface. And that's why, you know, we're so honored to connect with someone like you, who we have such a heart connection with, and we can go to that space quite easily. And yeah, it's this, you know, recently I've been thinking like something's definitely happening around the world, and of course, like there's this massive energy, this kind of this collective shadow, like the Earth's going through its own like dark night of the soul. But there's definitely I think sometimes because we're in spiritual circles, we can sometimes think something is happening when it is, but on a grander scheme of things, there's so much more work to do. Like, and I feel like a lot of the spiritual community definitely feel like, oh, we've started to speak about the things, kind of spirit's going to take control of it, and we can kind of go back to our normal life, and you know, we can't put all our energy into this because it's, you know, people are going to start getting turned off, or, and yeah, it's just, you know, it's just such a time of of uncomfortability and rawness, and so much stuff needs to come to the surface. And that's what, of course, why we felt called to put this course together, because we feel like there needs to be a unified space to have these conversations. Because I feel like at the moment because of the racist structures that exist and how it even plays out, that energy is still lingering there, where there's shame coming on both sides, because it's so deep rooted and sensitive, you know, to everybody involved. And there's not there doesn't seem to be a safe space for people to just listen and feel, and be comfortable to be called out. You know, that's what it is really. You have to be comfortable to be called out and to be open to learning. And that's what we kind of had this vision for this course is, you know, we have a desire to hold the space, a lovingly held space where we can listen to each other and feel the rawness of our hearts, and actually understand what oneness is on a real level, not just a superficial level, which means integrating all parts of the whole and actually doing the collective shadow work. That's what excites me about the space that we're going into.
Yeah.
And of course, the sort of souls that are going to be called to that sort of space are obviously willing to do the work to help this collective shift, because of course it's beyond us. And I was saying the other day in another live we did, you know, to come to this sort of space that we're creating, you actually really have to you have to have some sort of openness to seeing past yourself, because there's a certain, of course, all sorts of emotions are going to be brought to the space, but you have to be able to see the kind of the other side of the tunnel. You have to see the whole way through. So you know that you can get through it, instead of just feeling like it's going to be such a heavy burden. It's going to be such a like something that's going to be too challenging to go through. You know, so it's such an honor to feel you just being open and raw and just and being willing to go there, because it's such a reflection for us as well, and for all people who are also wanting to go to that space, and also remembering what it's for. You know, it's not just to, of course, be seen as being someone who creates change, because unfortunately, not unfortunately, it just happens because that's where spirits aligned it. But within the spiritual community, we also want to feed our sense of self. You know, we also want to compare our awakeness, or our the way we transcended the nature of reality with our peers, with our circles, because we still have things that we need to work on within there. That's our last work, of course. And then, of course, the same thing is playing out within the spiritual community, within the race awakening. Which we're calling it, because we feel like it is a race awakening. It's this kind of crack that's been smashed open, and it's this kind of leaking through, and there's not really any way we can stop it, because it's something that needs to be addressed for the way humanity is trying to move into the future at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that there's so many, like it's like spirit's been really calling, and the world has really been calling for that, you know. And it's almost like this is one of the main ways of divisiveness that is in our reality. And so it's like it's been calling for, it's like this whole idea of being like a yogi or yogini that has no family, that is, you know, that is somehow secluded from the world, to trying to live in an awakened way with families and with relationships. It's like you have to be willing to like acknowledge the hate that you hold if you're going to really love another person, not just love God by yourself, but to love another person even another person that does look like you, you're going to have to feel the hate that's in your heart, you know, because it's true, because that's what humans hold. We carry everything, right? We carry like the love and the hate. And it's like, it's not necessarily what we want to have, but it's just human, right? It's the most human thing to hold everything. And so, you know, I really feel that. I feel what you're saying. And I feel that it is like a calling to dismantle so much of that. And I love the way that you are all talking about it. And especially with this course, because it's like, you're not just ignoring this love that we are on some level, but there's also this other human piece to it. And to be able to hold both of these things, I think is so important and does stretch many of us to a place that isn't comfortable. But like I said, if you've ever tried to have a relationship with anybody that's close, you're going to be called into that place where it's not comfortable and it hurts, right? It hurts a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Like with this course, like we really wanted to create a bridge for like all of the understanding we have around you know, racism and race and the reality of that for all people, you know, like, because we really feel that race, you know, the construct of race is oppressive to all of us, and it's made all of us ill and distorted. It's another layer of ego that's so central to all of us, you know, because so many of us feel a sense of identity based on our racial group, which is something which has been imposed onto us, and it's not actually inherently true. You know, it's not our truth, but it's something that we, you know, it defines our experience in this dimension, because of that structure has become you know, so saturated everywhere you go. So you can't go anywhere without your, you know, the race that's been, you know, put onto your body, impacting the way you're experiencing and relating with everything and everyone. And most of this is unconscious, but you know, this is a time of collective shadow work, and like you say, this is such a crucial piece of the puzzle for us to truly start to really, you know, like practice what we preach in terms of oneness and love. Like, we can't really be loving all people. Like, people say, oh, I love everyone, you know, and I have so much love, and I've connected to unconditional love. And a lot of the time people mean well, they want that to be true. But, you know, the layers of shadow work necessary for that, it goes beyond just your family and your friends and maybe like someone that triggers you, or, you know, like other people in your sphere of influence. It's not just about like loving those that are in your direct reality. It's about asking why I don't love others outside of my direct reality, to the point where I've expanded my you know, sphere of relation to incorporate more people, because ultimately the more you deepen in your capacity to love, the more you want to spread that love to those that you haven't loved yet, and you want to go out and find those people that are really lacking love, or that have, you know, that are whole collectively that we don't love, which is often, you know, in this case is black and brown people and people of color. They're not experiencing love from humanity and from the structures that humanity have created, because of this race illusion and how it's, you know, become so entrenched in our being. So naturally you would feel called, if you expand your love to the capacity to hold those people, you would feel called to go directly to give love, to support those people in rising in love, to feeling your own love, you know, whatever your skin color is, and so this is true for all of us. And for me as a person of color, someone that would be, you know, seen as a person of color, you know, I'm just a being, and this is my skin, and this has an impact on my identity in terms of my experience of the world. But for me, that love, that unconditional love, is and this is a big part of the course. It's extending that to white people and to like loving them, because, you know, the construct of race came from white people, and it's on a surface level it benefits white people, and they're the people that are least actively harmed by it, and in this structure they're the people that benefit the most. And so it can be easy to, as someone that becomes aware of racism, especially as a person of color or a black person, to not feel that compassion, that loving compassion for white people in this construct. And so for me, that's a really important part of, you know, my journey with love and race and racism. And also it's a big part of this course, that white people feel loved and accepted as they, you know, unfold these layers, and they don't feel blamed, and they don't feel like it's their fault. But they do feel held accountable. So, you know, this is what it's all about. It's about loving accountability, and all of us, and that's to all of us. And often there can be a bit of an imbalance where it's like, oh, it's like white people need to do all the work and people of color, it's like, it's not, obviously people of color, black people have lived experience of racism in a way that white people don't, but it doesn't mean that all of those people with lived experience have done loads of shadow work with love and with what it means to really love all people, regardless of race, right? So like they can also, you know, be holding walls in their heart towards, say, white people because of the constructs of white supremacy and things like that. So that's why this space is really about all people coming to the work of racial healing and all people coming to the work of deconditioning, you know, the walls that are there and the programmed layers that keep us in separation with each other, whether, you know, you're a person, a brown person, or you're a white person. Because if you're, say, a brown person and when you see a white person, immediately you feel a sense of, you know, resentment or mistrust, or you're projecting that they'll be a certain way. That's also, you know, a reflection of your own racial trauma and the work that you have to do. And that's obviously not spoken about as much, and for good reason too, because there's more immediate harm being perpetuated towards black people and people of color. Like they're not even able to just live, you know. So obviously that's the kind of more pressing issue. But the process of unity, which we still have to hold space for even while we're working with, requires all of us to come and do the work and show up in the way we can. And so our course holds space for anyone here who might be interested. We hold space at first for white people and people of color separately to do the work of uncovering internalized racism, uncovering racial conditioning and racial trauma. And then we go into deep healing in the second week in separate spaces as well, where we'll be clearing ancestral conditioning, ancestral trauma. We'll be releasing you know, any accumulated density and energy from our own experience of racism or being racist unconsciously, or racial trauma, whatever it is. So we'll be healing and really getting into the body and allowing us to move that energy with intention. And then in the final week, we come together in the vibration of unity, and there's an interactive group healing space where white people can offer healing to the people of color, and people of color can receive, and if they feel to, offer forgiveness. And so there's this sense of, you know, we're coming together as one people beyond our skin color and our experience. And not to say that that's the work complete, but just to hold that energy within this cycle of this layer of healing that we're going to be. And there's also a celebration, a unity celebration, to be in our hearts and be in our essence in that moment, in that space, at least, you know, together through this vibration of racial healing that we'd be cultivating through the process. And the other beautiful thing about the process is that every white person that joins, they automatically sponsor a space for a black person. So it's a way of, you know, holding the intention for there to be reparation through this process. So black people don't have to pay to heal from something that they didn't create, that has, you know, perpetuated a lot of harm towards them. And obviously, you know, there's a long way to go before reparation. I mean, reparation can never truly be done in the sense of like, you know, true repair on all levels for what, you know, for the construct of race and all the harm it's perpetuated. But this is something we can do as individuals, right? You know, as a white person, you have the power to not only do your own work to heal from racial trauma and internalized racism, but you can gift, you know, a black person to heal at the same time. And it feels so amazing to us. Loads of white people have signed up and then therefore gifted these spaces, and to all these black people that like, oh my God, like, yeah, I really want this work. And for us to be able to say, yeah, you know, you can just have it. There's no block, there's no barrier. Money is not a block, which is, you know, this intergenerational poverty, which is a byproduct of colonialism and racism and all of the inequality that's been created through, you know, white supremacy and empire. Like, that's not there. So any black person, whatever financial situation they're in, can come and receive this healing that all of them need, you know, and that's so amazing. So if you're a white person or even a non-black person of color, you can also sponsor a space, and if you don't have the means to participate yourself, you can also just sponsor a space for £111 for a black person to experience this healing. So please do check out our site, and we'd really love you to join us if you feel to. And yeah, so we'd love to ask you, Adriana, I mean, you've spoken a bit to it, but what made you want to join us on this course? And then if you have any questions for us, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, well, everything you just shared, because I feel like you've covered like all of the bases that like I've thought of, where I'm like, well, what about this? And then, you know, that's like part of, I mean, I love you all so much. You know, I loved you so much before, and now I'm like, my love for you is growing so much, because I'm like, oh, like, there's such a thoroughness to, I feel like, this offering, and to, you know, it speaks a lot to just who you are, I think, as teachers and leaders and healers, and people of color, in the realm of like the sensitivity that you really do gain when you're on the other side of a lot of the things that I feel like will be shared in this course. You know, there is this like depth of and thoroughness that I think that we can all come to, you know, inside of deepening our awareness of all this. And so, you know, for me, I felt so moved right away to start like doing more work. I have been doing some anti-racism work for, I don't know, maybe about like a year, like on and off, not as consistently as I'm doing it now, which is just part of my practice right now every day. And but the workshops that I have taken in the past, it was always just so powerful, like to just look at like, wow, all these things I didn't even think about, you know, like going through this checklist of like white privilege and being like, wow, I didn't even think of any of these things. And I love waking up, you know, I mean, I don't always love it. It's painful, but even in that, I do love it. I love being awake. It's the only thing that like keeps me in the world, you know, is to keep waking up. So
Yeah, loves it.
yeah. And so, you know, it's like with you, especially, like I said, because also then people of color get to also be there, and just the way that you're going to kind of hold space for all of it. I really trust you, and I trust I trust the facilitation of that. And I'm personally excited to learn more about what I haven't uncovered yet, right? Like there's things there that have come into my awareness, but I know there's more. And so to be able to do that, and to also be a part of something that I think is really going to bring people together in a way that is really, really authentic, because that's the piece that I think, especially around race, that is just like, it puts us into some sort of inauthenticity when we can't actually be able to relate, right? And these are all the things that are keeping us from really being able to relate, are the things that, you know, that are inside of us that we just don't even know about, you know, that are there. And then through the process of uncovering them, I think then we can be closer. And that's, you know, always my ultimate goal is for like authentic love, you know, that isn't just an idea, you know, that isn't just like you were saying, I love everyone as an idea, but then to go out and to be with people that don't look like you, you're going to feel the parts of you that you didn't realize didn't maybe love everyone, or don't, that you just inherited from your family, that you didn't even know was there until you were in the presence of, you know, certain demographics or certain kinds of people, or, you know, that you're just not used to. And it makes it's like a lived experience, right? And I know that so much of what you all will be sharing is a lot about this embodied experience of healing racism and being together in that way that isn't just an idea, but that really helps us kind of be there. So I think I'm most excited about that, and about not knowing. Like I'm excited to feel my own like insecurity and tenderness and all the things that I really believe kept me from being more active before, right? Those are the things that I'm excited to bring to this, because those are the things that I know were kind of holding me back before from being more awake to how to actually be connected in this way. And, you know, those are the things I'm looking forward to dismantling, and to also learning from others, and also just learning from you. I'm really looking forward to that.
Aww, thank you so much.
Yeah, and all of your writing, and, you know, so much of, you know, even just I know all of you watching here have Instagram, and, you know, just everything you've been writing. If I feel like I already know some people that have signed up, but I hope everybody that's here right now definitely signs up. And if you're doubting it, just like go and read some of the Ascension Seed, these lovely people, all the writing you've been doing has been so powerful around this. And I'm just like, I hope you're going to like take it all and put it somewhere that, you know, you can share it even more, because it's a lot of power. I've been getting a lot of healing just from reading what you're writing. And so I know that being together in that way is going to be just super powerful and really great. Someone's saying they already signed up. Yeah. Great. Cool. And so I guess,
Okay,
you know,
we'll
my question for you would be, I mean, I feel like I've gotten so much from what you just shared, but just, you know, what you're hoping to get, like I hear the desire for so many people to come together, but in this way that is really unique, right? Like even separating people in the initial stages of being able to look at it, I think really creates a safe place for people to really go there, and then to bring people together, like all of that. You know, I guess I'm just curious for you on maybe a personal level, you know, what are you hoping to evolve throughout this?
Hey, baby. Can't take baby. What we're hoping to, yeah. Well, our vision basically for the course is by the end of on a personal level. We're learning as well through this process. Like this offering is completely channeled through spirit because it's obviously aligned in this time. We're also, you know, learning on this journey. You know, me personally, I'm not an expert on racism, you know, but I have a lived experience of it, unconsciously and consciously in my life. But I obviously have a desire to hold a lovingly held space where everyone can be felt and held and and kind of loved into their shadow and not shamed into their shadow, because, you know, from personal experience, I know that I don't learn when I'm shamed. Like if someone shames me because of my conditioning, I contract, you know, and that's obviously still something I'm working through. You're always working through, but I know that the times when I've absorbed information is when I've been given a safe space to be open and I feel safe, and, you know, through creating that space for myself, in my life and what we'll be creating in the course, I know that other people are going to be able to go there as well, and that's what I'm personally excited for. And I'm just very. I was saying this the other day, I'm very intrigued to see what energy comes to the space, because, you know, it's going to be challenging. You know, there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes up because it needs to come up. And yeah, I'm just excited to see how we go through it, because of the sort of souls that are attracted to the space, you know. I'm just excited to be in this space, really, because I know a lot of shifts are going to take place for us as well. Because this is a realm which we haven't dived into so much before, but we know it's very necessary, and we have this desire to create this space, because we haven't heard of a space like this, you know, so far. I'm sure there is, but where everyone's given a space to speak their truth, and then be open to being challenged, or being shown where there may be something which is not in alignment with even their highest truth in the space. And I'm also so open to learning and listening to people's experience and bursting my own bubble. We just hope this work, and, you know, I feel like this offering is something which probably will continue, because it's very, very, very needed right now. And through this process we're going to learn and see what works and how it flows, and how best to grow this offering. And I can really see people leaving the course with their own racial shadow work kind of lens, whilst also hearing other people's experience, because at the moment there's so much information going around, and, you know, that as well can be overwhelming. You sometimes don't know where to start, and, you know, we that's why we call it reveal to heal, because you have to reveal the things within you. Like inner work is what it's about, really, isn't it? It's about doing the inner work to see where we have these conditioned layers and this programming. I'm definitely more excited to go into the more feeling part of it than the logical kind of statistics and like words and I feel like that's going to be the most powerful thing about the course.
Yeah, totally.
And for me, I'm really looking forward to the multi-dimensional kind of aspect of this experience, and how we really want to kind of dial people into like all the different levels of like why we're doing this work, and why this separation has manifested in the first place, and then what it takes for us, you know, on all the different dimensions of our being to actually truly unpack this, and to really create that marriage between this dimension and the heart and the soul and the mind and the body. I'm really looking forward to that, and this is a big container for us to hold. So it should be, you know, that will bring with it, you know, kind of calling us to step into our power, and, you know, holding that container, you know, with ultimate strength and love, which I do trust we'll do, because, you know, it's going to be completely Spirit just gave me this download in the shower that we needed to create this. And I actually, before I had my spiritual awakening, I had like a race awakening of my own. And before that, I had a lot of white friends, and I felt quite, in some ways disconnected from my own roots and stuff. And I used to always straighten my hair and all of this. There were a lot of these layers of internalized kind of, decolonized, like I was colonized, so I went through my own decolonization process and learned so much, like all this stuff that's been everywhere recently. I was fully in that myself, with like all these activists and artists of color around me that were very radical and just burst so many bubbles for me, and I really learned so much. And then I started to come to this kind of spiritual perspective even at that time, before I hadn't my spiritual awakening, and I kind of realized that there was a sense of unity and love that was lacking in this kind of community I was in, and people weren't trying to push to the next level, which is ultimately to bring everyone together. There was still a sense of like us and them, and so I was like, well, this isn't, you can't heal the problem with the same energy, so I was like, okay, there's another level. And I really saw how everyone was oppressed by racism, and I realized, I'd rather be someone that's, in a brown body who's aware, even if I'm someone that suffers from racism, than be someone who's white and unconscious, because then I'll be perpetuating harm on my, reflections without knowing, So I realized how, even though it can seem like, oh, white people are fine and people of color are harmed, like, it's not that simple. There's so many nuances, and really, like, it depends on what you see as harm, really. For me, like, what's most harmful is if I'm harming others, even if that's consciously or unconsciously, or through my silence or through my complicity or whatever. So I think that there's harm for all of us here, and I think it's really, I feel confident to share that perspective. But I've had other friends who are, very kind of also in the world of healing justice. Someone messaged me today, she was like, you're so courageous in the way you speak about this. Like, I resonate with these things too, but I don't feel safe to necessarily say them, because I know that not all people of color and black and brown people that are in this realm resonate with speaking in this way, where it's like, kind of, they might see it as giving white people an easy time, or like, like not making it so much about them and not putting the work on them. And for me, it's not about that. It's about everyone has the work to do, because the white people are us too, like everyone is you, like, it's your own struggles themselves. We have to take white people as ourselves as well, and see like what's going on. It's our job to open our hearts to them and to hold space for them to do the work, just as we hold space for ourselves. So I'm excited to go into that, and I really feel like Spirit, like, able to like marry everything I learned then with everything I've learned on my spiritual journey. And it wasn't until now that it was meant to, like, ding, this is the moment. And I remember saying, I was like, oh, I know that I've gone through that awakening and then the spiritual awakening, to be able to bridge the two, but I never thought about, what I would do with that, or like, it wasn't part of my reality. We've been offering lots of other things, and then suddenly this has happened, and it's like actually been, it's clearly just so, guided by Spirit, because loads of new people have come to our work, and loads of people have signed up, and it's just got its whole energy of its own. It's just completely a separate entity that we've just holding space for and birthing. So it's obviously new for us too, and that's exciting, and there's also a bit of unknown aspect there, but I really do trust the process, because it's just happened so divinely. It's just, all of it, the whole orchestration of it. I'm just really looking forward to seeing what unfolds, and to being witness as well, and just observing the process and playing our part and holding the space, to the best of our capacity, for everyone that comes in. So it should be really amazing. And for those here, we start on Monday, next Monday, the 29th. If you want to join us, there are 9 spaces left for white people or non-black people of color to sign up. And if you have any black friends that might be interested, we've got around 10 free spaces still available, and probably a few more will come available too. But please do share this amazing opportunity for deep healing with your black friends and family. Like, that's a really amazing way to support their own healing journey if they don't already know about something like this. It's such a unique opportunity. So please do tell people, or even if you just put it, share the story, share on your stories or your social media about this offering. You never know, like, who might want to come and take one of the free spaces, or even to sign up. If you know people that are open to this kind of work, like do healing work and shadow work, and also have had an awakening of their own around racism. We really want to call in all those people that are really committed to the work, because ultimately most people have said something, not everyone, but most people have said something about this since this whole shift happened. But there's definitely still a reflection of avoidance and shadow and bypassing within that, because there'll be a lot of people who have stopped saying anything and have probably stopped thinking about it and are kind of like, okay, the heat's off that one. or no one's gonna say anything now if I carry on how I was before. And then there's people that have actually genuinely had a personal, deep opening and realization, and they are definitely going to commit to the work in a new way now. And so those are the people that we're calling in, because we need to also be the way showers to really continue the momentum of this shift in consciousness, to help others to keep waking up, because there's, this isn't it. There's going to be more and more waves, and this is the racism one and race one, and there'll be more waves of this race one too, but there's so many other oppressive structures of separation and division that we all need to bring into our consciousness too, for different groups of people, different reflections. So yeah, that's I guess how I'm feeling about the process, and thank you for asking.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, doing it at that level, and I think that's also part of why I'm so drawn to it in the way that you're doing it. Because like I said, I do it in other ways, but there's such a nuance like that you spoke to that is like, it's so uniquely like your journey, and like the way, like you said, that spirit's driving you to kind of call forth other leaders. And I think, and I know from my own experience of like, doing that work within it just naturally empowers us to be leaders in our own worlds around it. And as we know, in the collective, and it's just like there's so many forces of darkness and evil, and there's a lot of really intense shit out there, that I think we really are being called to be even greater leaders of this particular area, even if we haven't been before, and I really think true leaders come from doing that process and doing that work inside with one another. So that's part of what I'm so grateful. And I'm also so excited and feel so supported already, to kind of keep it spreading and to keep having the willingness to like look in those places, where we're conditioned to ignore, which I think is so much of what it's about. So thank you for sharing all of that so vulnerably and so openly and so inspired. I just I'm like and rooted in such depth. It's really like, it's almost like I feel like when we do this in this kind of way, it has like such a different, like deeper, like reach. It's hard to explain because I think it's kind of subtle, but as opposed to like just reposting a bunch of shit on Instagram all the time, to like sitting back and slowing down and like doing it. And then it's like one thing that you share could have such a more profound effect than like all of this other looping that is happening, I think. And I think that that's what every great leader throughout history has really had, was that the depth of the personal experience and the willingness and the courage to make that experience in like transform it in their own soul and then speaking from that place that then has such a huge effect, so I just want to name the value of that work that you're holding space for.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that the people that don't claim this work as their own, like they're not going to see how profoundly liberating it will be for them if they did that, and the ones that do, we know, and we'll embody it, and we'll show up to it, and then we'll be able to just have so much more of a real impact on the earth, like like a true true embodiment of love, so yeah. Thank you so much for co-creating this, and it's been so beautiful to share with you, and thank you to everyone here as well. I would love to stay for some questions, but the baby's been awake way too long and we do need to put into bed.
Totally.
But yeah, please do follow us on Instagram. We're called the Ascension Seed. Maybe Adriana can send a link or something in this chat, and yeah, we'd love to connect with you on the course if any of you feel called, so please reach out to us. And you're so welcome. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Samantha. Bless you.
Yeah, so many blessings to you all, and thank you all for showing up here. And sorry about the technical difficulties. It's probably not the best time to try to do so many things at once, but I feel like it worked out, and I know those spots will get filled by the souls that need to be in them. So and I'll keep sharing about it, and everyone else, please share. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. So much love, many blessings.
So much love.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.